What's something you're 100% sure is true, even though you can't prove it?
There is one road a block from my house that Google Maps has never, ever recognized as a viable way to travel, despite it being the obvious solution to anyone in our neighborhood who needs to move out in that direction. I suspect a Google co-founder lives in the area and pulled some strings to reduce traffic on the street.
I suspect they also intentionally alter routes to take you past sponsors' storefronts.
I often feel like it's the opposite. So often, Google Maps sends me through some convoluted mess of residential suburban streets just because it's 0.1 miles shorter. Then, when I check the map afterward, I realize I could have just stayed on the main roads, lined with businesses, and made 2 turns at light-controlled intersections. It's especially frustrating when, after slowly navigating those residential streets, it brings me to a left turn across heavy traffic. Something that could have been avoided if it had just kept me on the main road with its dedicated turning lanes and traffic lights.
Is it a road with particularly nice houses? Once, when I was bored, I'd go on property websites and browse the fancier homes by sorting listings from highest to lowest price. There was one area just outside the city where I lived that had a few mansions for sale. But when I put the address into Google Maps, nothing. A whole collection of streets with no street view. I don't know if maps would even route you through those streets, but honestly, I can believe it.
Totally addicted to the adrenaline rush they get from running in front of cars.
Birds, too. They'll even wait on the side of the road like they're craving their next adrenaline fix. It's like they're playing a game to see who can fly the closest to traffic without getting hit.
They make Trader Joe's parking lots too small on purpose.
I think an article came out a while back essentially saying, Trader Joe's picks the cheapest place to rent at the best location. This means they don't spend too much money on rent, even if they never have any parking.
Pretty sure my granddad was involved with smuggling, the mob, or something. He was a dock worker in the 50s and 60s, never let his wife visit him at work, and gave her some really nice ivory earrings and other less than legal items. Can't prove it. He died before I was born. Edit. Also, he wore a suit every day. As a dock worker, my mom said he would always walk so the wind wouldn't mess up his hair. So, seems pretty on brand for a mobster of some kind.
I had a neighbor when I was 10 in the late 80s who worked at the Long Beach shipyard, supposedly as a crane operator. He and his wife, a model half his age, would go to Vegas every 5 or 6 weeks and always came back claiming big jackpot wins. I'd take care of their 2 huge Rottweilers while they were gone. A few times when they returned, he'd flash me a briefcase full of banded stacks of $100 bills and say it was a $20 or $30 grand jackpot win from the slots. As an adult, I've been to Vegas. Nobody wins like that, ever. Nor do dock workers get weeks off every month. They would take me to dinners at restaurants filled with cigar smoke and old men in suits with young women by their side. Or whale watching on his big speedboat, the razzmatazz around Catalina, VIP booths at the racetrack, and a few major league games. It was an experience, for better or worse, that I still appreciate having. It was a stark contrast to the life I lived at home.
I feel this. My grandpa had a business in Ohio. It burned down. He sent my granny, mom, and uncle down to Florida to a nunnery. She was a teacher and taught there. While he stayed, the family home burned down. He came to Florida and opened a bar. The bar burned down. He went to a different part and never worked again.
My own conspiracy theory. In the UK, we have a vast overpopulation of traffic cones. They don't know where to store them all, so they just randomly put them on a road for a couple of weeks, then move them to a different road with no works actually being done.
They have no natural predators.
I often think about the logistics behind large-scale projects, not so much the massive amount of energy needed to, say, rebuild a bridge or add a new lane to 30 miles of highway. I think about how there are people whose entire job is managing a warehouse of road cones for a large enough entity. Like, a couple dozen road cones for a smaller utility or construction company isn't that big of a deal. But a state road department or a company that works in multiple states with multiple crews? Surely they have somebody keeping track of a massive amount of cones. We had construction on the interstate recently, and there were cones out, maybe 15 feet apart, for about 30 miles. That's more than 10,000 cones. Somebody has to be paid nearly full-time to ensure they're placed, stored, inventoried, and replaced when necessary. It's a spreadsheet I'd love to take a look at someday.
That people who program traffic lights somehow set them up so they can have an easier commute.
Elmao, that's a good one. Something that's absolutely crazy, but also, we all know someone who would do something like that, so it's probably happened.
Netflix included a lot of smoking for their characters as an advertisement for the tobacco industry. since tobacco is heavily restricted in how it can be advertised.
In some countries, the media can't even portray tobacco use, and smoking scenes are edited out. There was even a British show I saw where, in the original, the camera faded up from black, and we saw a few seconds of two characters smoking before the third guy walked in. The same show on Netflix cuts the smoking, instead fading up the moment the third character walks in.
I have no idea why, but I deeply believe that human cloning has been done in secret.
The UN passed a law banning it. The UN. But speaking generally, people don't really write laws against things that might happen someday. They pass laws against things that have already happened and gone wrong.
In grade 6, Kevin stole $10 out of my locker. No one was ever brought to justice for this heinous crime, but I know it was that little prick, Kevin.
I have this strong belief that small acts of generosity can create ripples of positivity in ways we might never see.
I read a Buddhist book about this once. It said that the universe is inherently full of suffering. So if one perpetuates suffering, then nothing changes. If one does nothing to prevent or limit the suffering, then nothing changes. But if one does good, something changes. And good actions actually compound at an exponential rate because of their rarity and the energy it takes to fight the natural state of things. It was an interesting book. It taught me to treat all people with love, care, and respect. That's why I became a waiter.
I'm convinced my papa smoked a pipe. I can picture it vividly in my mind. My mom, papa's daughter, aunts, uncles, and cousins all say he didn't. I am the only one who remembers this. It's like he only smoked his pipe around me and the rest of the time he smoked cigarettes. This is a hill I will die on.
My grandfather supposedly quit smoking back in the 90s, or at least that's what the family says, which is complete lies and slander, because I vividly remember that man lighting up Camel non-filters well into the 2000s, down in the basement while working on something saying, "Don't tell your Nana or I'll get in trouble."
Understand way more of what we say than they let on.
My dad always made sure we said nice things to our dogs because he was convinced they understood us. One time, our dog came home with a ridiculous haircut, and as a kid, I couldn't help but laugh. My poor dog hung his head and hid under the dining table. He was a bearded collie and super intelligent.
I love your dad because I do the same thing. It's not a bad legacy to have. Animals have thoughts and feelings not unlike our own. We should treat them kindly, just as we should treat ourselves.
I had a dog that did the same thing. She came home from the groomer looking like she was having one heck of a bad hair day. When she walked in, I said something like, "Oh honey, what did they do to you?" She hung her little head and went to hide. I honestly think she was embarrassed. It took a couple of days of us baby talking her and telling her what a pretty girl she was before she finally came out again. I guess she just had to rebuild her confidence and realize she was beautiful just the way she was.
I think how you say things carries a lot more weight for pets, at least for dogs. Not that they don't also understand more words than we give them credit for, but I think pets often seem so perceptive because they pick up on how we look and act, just as much as the sounds coming out of our mouths. Edit. Just to clarify, I'm saying pets pick up on a lot of nonverbal cues, and that's where much of their extra understanding or intelligence seems to come from. I believe most pets only learn a limited number of actual words, but if you monologue to your pet, they'll still understand how you feel, even if they don't understand what you're saying.
There's no unified cabal. We are ruled by incompetent, delusional, perverted buffoons propped up by the inertia of a system maintained by opportunistic barnacles. These people are far too egotistical to maintain an Illuminati-like unity.
People always call it a conspiracy theory, but as George Carlin said, you don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. That's what it is, an interest aligning for the worst people. They'll eat each other alive if it comes to it because they don't care about anything but money and power.
I agree with this. Trying to put them together in some sort of evil fraternity is giving them way too much credit.
The moon landing was 100% real, and the footage we see is real and from that moon landing. I'm not taking away anything from the heroes on the mission and in the control room or anything like that, but I am 100% convinced that the live transmissions and newscasts were delayed to make sure there were no screw-ups.
They were delayed. In fact, the footage we have of Armstrong setting foot on the moon is from news organizations pointing their cameras at a feed displayed in Mission Control. NASA would not splice them into the live feed.
The conspiracy theory I heard was that they filmed a fake landing to save face in the event of the real mission going wrong, which is utter nonsense. The White House even declassified papers showing how Nixon would have responded to a failure or disaster, including an address to the nation. And if there had been any hint whatsoever of fakery, the USSR would have been on it like a measles rash. Guess what? They weren't. It happened. It was real. I am somewhat surprised that we haven't really been back since. given technology is a lot better and there's more to discover. Although I guess we don't really need to send humans precisely because the tech is better.